We're missing a camera. Okay, here we go. Our first guest tonight is a motion picture star in the truest sense of the term. Some of this man's films include Lust for Life, Spartacus, Detective Story, 7 Days in May, The Bad and the Beautiful, and his latest co-starring Burt Lancaster is entitled Tough Guys. Certainly a pleasure to welcome to this program Kirk Douglas.
David, yes, I want to tell you that I'm very excited being on the show. I watch the show quite often, so you know that I stay up late. But I'm a little disappointed because this morning, fellow Robert Morton called
Robert Morton, one of our staff members.
Yeah, he was very excited. He says, "Oh, Kirk, we're so glad you're on the show." He said, "I saw the show Tough Guys. It's terrific. Yeah. You know, you're just wonderful." I said, "How'd David Letterman like it?" Well, he said, "That scene with you and Burt Lancaster on the..." He said, I said, "But how did David Letterman like it?"
Right, yeah.
He said, "Well, David didn't see it."
That's right.
So I said, "Well, I'm going on the show, and David didn't see the show." He says, "Well, you know, he lives in Connecticut."
Right.
So I said, "Well, I live 3,000 miles away." So I said, "Well, if David didn't come on the show," I said, "then I'll send somebody else with a hole in their chin," and here I am.
Yeah. Well, now, I certainly appreciate you being here, but as you probably know by now, I spend my weekends in prison, and therefore impossible for me to go out and see the movie. But I'm going to see it tomorrow, probably.
I hope you.
But I'll see it tomorrow, and...
I hope you. But on top of that, the insult, I come on, and suddenly Paul here has trouble remembering my name. Paul. Is that a difficulty that he has?
But don't lump that into your problems with me. That's Paul. That's a whole different division there.
I knew that it was Kirk. It wasn't me. It was somebody up in the office earlier, wasn't it? Robert Morton, I think.
This is on your office. Would have been easier.
No. So now let's talk about the. What number of film is this? You must have made close to 75, 70.
Yes, I think Tough Guys is probably my 73rd or 74th film.
Wow. And now, are there some there that you don't remember at all? Some you don't want to remember?
Oh, yes. There's quite a few you don't want to remember, but that's the curse of television. Sometimes you make a film, you'd like to forget it, and suddenly you turn on the tube, and there it is, staring in the face.
What are some of those that you'd rather not remember? And then we'll talk about the ones you want to remember, of course.
Well, that's, for instance, Big Trees. Don't ever see Big Trees.
Big Trees was made in 1952.
Oh, you ever seen a movie called Big Trees? Don't see it. Or if there's a movie called Along the Great Divide, don't see it.
Along the Great Divide, okay. We'll take care of that. But what was the plot of Big Trees? I guess you're what? They're a forest ranger, probably, huh?
Well, you know, I don't remember. Doing something about lumber camps, and I was cutting down trees. I don't remember very much.
Now, that's interesting. You had a run here. In 1951, you made a film called The Big Carnival.
That's right. That was also called, the original title of Big Carnival, David, was Ace in the Hole.
Ace in the Hole,
which I thought was a much better title. And then they changed it.
And then in 1952, you made The Big Trees.
Yes.
Then you made, you know what came after that?
I have no idea.
The Big Sky.
Ah, I like that. The Big Sky was quite different from The Big Trees. That was a Howard Hawks picture. That was fun.
That was a good movie, all right?
I like that.
The Last Train from Gun Hill, 1958.
That was with Anthony Quinn. That was fun.
That was a good movie?
Yeah.
The Last Sunset?
With Rock Hudson. Fair movie.
And let's see, what else do we have here?
We're not going to go through the whole 75 movies.
No, but this is a very impressive list when you start taking a look at these things here. Home movies.
Home movies.
Home movies.
I worked 3 days somewhere with Brian De Palma. He was doing an experimental film. I never even knew it was going to come out. I worked 3 days, and suddenly he released a movie called Home Movies. Yeah.
But so originally, perhaps they were just home movies. And
that's right.
Found a way to make some dough at it.
Exactly. Somebody did. I never got any.
Do you ever get tired of people doing all of the impressionists working, of course, include a major hunk with you in it? Does that ever? What is your reaction when you see
David, as a matter of fact, I'm intrigued by impressions that they do of me. You know, they're really very astute the way they capture certain qualities. And I remember years ago, someone was doing a I think it was Rich Little, was doing an impression of me, and while he was doing it, I was watching it on TV, and I didn't know that my son Peter was behind me. And as I was watching it, I was going along, doing the impression with him. And my son tapped me on the shoulder. He says, "Dad, Rich Little can do you better than you."
Well, was your first reaction one of, well, what are they doing, or were you pleased when you first saw it?
Yes, yes.
You found it flattering?
I think it's a flattering thing, and I do think that they capture, you know, I find them very, very intelligent. They capture certain qualities that you do have, certain intensities and things that I have, little foibles.
Yeah, the spirit as well as physical gestures and mannerisms.
I think they're very well done.
All right.
Doesn't bother me at all.
We have to do a commercial here, and then we'll, you got some time, we'll be right back.
I'd be delighted.
Okay, we'll continue. Did you ever, when you were known as a really hard guy, a tough guy in films, you had that image, was that ever problems for you in real life? In bars or parties or on the street?
Well, as a matter of fact, right after I did Champion, you know, which was a very successful picture, I think that's the first picture that really catapulted me. I remember once I was in a bar, and people were sort of noticing me for the first time, looking at me.
Do you remember where that was?
It was on Sunset Boulevard.
It was in California.
Yeah, and I walked, and I was there at the, you know, having a drink at the bar. I don't know what I wanted to waste a few minutes or something before I went somewhere, and I saw two tough-looking guys in a booth sort of sizing me up, you know. He doesn't look so tough or something. And as I'm drinking, I see one of them say, well, he gets up, and he starts walking toward me. I thought, well, now what's going to happen? He probably saw Champion. And suddenly, I don't know why, it just hit me. I slammed my fist on the bar, and everybody turned and looked at me. And I said, anybody in this bar room can lick me. And the guy just stopped, and he turned around, went back to his seat.
Yeah.
You know, that was the end of that one.
You're lucky nobody took you up on that. And John Wayne was upset with you once because of a role that you took?
Well, John was a strange fellow. I loved working with him. We were never close, but he was always calling me for pictures. We worked at about 4 movies. I did Lust for Life at one time, and John came to the, Wayne came to the premiere of it, and after that we had a party, and after the party he was grumbling away, having a few drinks. He looked at me, he says, motion. We went out on the veranda, and he was so angry at me, David. Kirk, how could you play a sniveling artist? He says, guys like us gotta play macho guys. Well, I said, John, I always call him John. Everybody always call him Duke.
All right.
I said, well, John, you know, I'm an actor. It's a... No. He was very, very angry. And I said, John, you know, you're not really John Wayne. He kind of looked strangely at me. Yeah. Because I think John did, you know, identify with the characters he was playing. And he was furious at me for playing this crazy, weak artist, Van Gogh.
Yeah, he thought for some reason this would have a negative influence.
Oh, yes. Also, he thought I wasn't true to my class, in a sense. We were the tough guys.
But at a time in your life, didn't you wrestle at Carnival?
Oh, yeah. I was an undefeated wrestler in my weight division at
Now, what kind of wrestling
college.
is this? Is this like...
Well, intercollegiate wrestling.
Oh, I see.
But, you know, wrestlers make the best actors. And wrestlers make the best actors.
I've been having that trouble all night. Don't worry about it, yeah.
No, but they really do, and I wrestle
the heat in here.
to make money. To make money during summer vacations, I wrestle with the Carnival, and the guy from my wrestling team would be the mass marvel on the stage. I'd be the guy in the audience.
Well, you'd be the local...
yeah, I'd be the guy, and the guy said, who will take on my mass marvel? And up went my hand, and, well, here's a man who wants to risk his life, step up, and we'd wrestle together, you know, have about 3 bouts and kept emptying the tent. And he was one of the fellows that I wrestled with at college, so I got some of my best acting.
And you traveled all around a certain part of the country like that?
Traveled to different country fairs and stuff like that. And I was always very convincing. Yeah. Very convincing. I always won, but I was very convincing.
Well, it sounds like a pretty good job for a college kid. Sounds like a lot of fun.
Yeah, it was.
Yeah. Now, let's talk about this this film with Burt Lancaster. Tough Guys?
Tough Guys.
Tough Guys.
Yeah, I don't know, I think it's about the
It should have been
sixth.
the big tough guys, shouldn't it?
It's yeah.
Follow in that line of sequential
The
there.
big tough guy. No, but but this is about the sixth or seventh film that Bert and I have done together. And, of course, you know, we argue all the time. You know, people think we're such great buddies. We argue all the time. The only thing we really agreed on was when we read the script, we did think that this was a film that we should do, and there was never any doubt about who should play Harry, that was Bert, and who should play Archie, that was me.
Yeah.
So we agreed on that. And
Was the script written specifically with you guys in mind?
yes.
Yeah.
Apparently they saw, a couple years ago, Bert and I were on an Academy Awards show that my son Michael, by the way, he was on your
Michael
show.
was here, very nice man, yeah.
Yeah, I didn't.
Very
I'd like
witty,
to
charming
look at
fellow.
a copy of that film. I didn't see that. But Michael introduced the two of us, and after that, we got calls from several studios. Suddenly they thought, gee, we ought to put these two guys back together.
Yeah.
And someone, these two young writers, wrote a script with the two of us in mind, and that's the one that turned out to be Tough Guys.
And that's what we have. And we have a clip from that motion picture here tonight. Tell them what we're going to take a look at.
Well, I think you're going to take a look at when I'm trying to make my adjustment out of coming out of jail, and I'm trying to have they're giving me these different jobs, and I have a little difficulty getting adjusted to life. I've been in prison. We've been in prison for 30 years.
Those guys, old
and
criminals.
That's right.
And
And
now
this
they're
is one of
coming
the
out.
jobs that I've had,
Okay.
and I'm trying to get adjusted to it.
Okay, a scene from Tough Guys, Burt Lancaster.
Had trouble adjusting.
Yeah. I don't think John Wayne would have had any trouble with that.
No, he would approve of that scene. He would approve of that.
Let's see, what are we doing here? It's open now everywhere?
No, it opens, I think, around first week of October.
That's when I'm going to see it. As soon as it opens, I'll be there. Gee, it was a pleasure to meet you. I really appreciate you
Thank
taking
you.
the time
But
to
you
come
know,
out here.
otherwise, if you don't do these things, I begin to think that, for example, you don't do this show at 12:30 at night.
Well, no. No, don't be silly. Anyway, when you see your son Michael, tell him we said hello.
When I see Michael, I will tell him that, and I really enjoy being on your show, and you do a great job,
Come
and I
back
enjoy
anytime.
watching it.
And give our
I'd
best
like
to
that.
Burt Lancaster. We'll pause here for station identification. Thank you, boys. Paul Schaefer and the band axing the question, what does it take to win your love for me? Nicely
Exactly.
done. Now, Dave, when you get your own show, can Paul and the guys and myself come on that show?
Absolutely.
When does that thing begin?
October 2nd is the first air date.
And that's the last we'll see of you, I guess. You'll never come back, will you?
We're going to get those three guys.
Oh, yeah, just try and get them away from us. We'll see you in court, pal. Bring your spit valve. Our first guest is a distinguished actor whose more than 70 films include The Champion and Lust for Life. He has just written an autobiography called The Ragman Son. It's right here. And this weekend it will be #2. Oh, good, Dave. This week it will be #2 on the New York Times bestseller list. Please welcome back here Kirk Douglas. Hi, Kirk. How are you? Good to see you. Thanks for being here. Please do.
You know, before you begin, I want to explain to the audience, register a complaint, you know.
Oh, no.
I'm delighted to come on the show, and they send a limousine about a block long to pick me up, and I feel kind of important. Then they drive me down a tunnel. They take me into a garage. I go through a long tunnel. I come to a big freight elevator. And then I'm standing in front of the freight elevator, and there's 2 cages, I'm not exaggerating, with bears in them. Russian bears, and the guys are poнимает по-русски, and they're talking. These bears are there. We wait and wait. The elevator doesn't come down. I say to the kid, well, what happens? You know, it's getting late.
Right.
I said, what's the other escape hatch? He says, gee, I don't know. But anyhow, finally, the Bears and I all get on the elevator, and here I am, David.
Well, glad to have
Good
you.
to see you
Nice
again.
to see you.
But next time, David, I want to be treated with a little more respect.
I'm sorry about that.
After all, remember, I'm the father of Michael Douglas.
That's right. You know, I'm glad you told that story because I wasn't going to say anything, but you do smell a little of bear. Just a little, not much, just a little. You just look like you're in terrific shape. You had a good summer. Do you work out? Do you run, play golf, tennis,
I
any of
work
that
out
stuff?
every day.
What do you do when you work out?
Well, I do a 15-minute workout every day, and then I play a little golf or tennis.
Yeah.
Do a lot of walking, and that's all.
How long have you been playing tennis?
Well, I don't know, for about 20 years.
Yeah. Oh, that's a long time. How old a guy are you?
Well, it depends. You know, I've lied so much about my age that sometimes it's hard to keep up. I tell you, I'm going to give you a clue. When you start to lie about your age, what gets difficult? It's not bad in the early part, but then you have to start lying about your kids. So I take 5 years off of Michael's age,
Yes.
of Peter's, Joel's, Eric's,
Have to
and
get
then
a
suddenly it
bookkeeper.
catch up to it.
Yeah.
Suddenly they start to find you. I'm 70.
70 years old.
But they went that way.
Yeah, but you know, 70, if this is how great you look at 70, you have no reason to be lying about anything, you know?
I see. Well,
You've
you're
done a
nice.
pretty nice job taking care of yourself
That's
here.
nice. That's nice to hear that.
In the war, Second World War, you were on a submarine?
Yeah, I was a officer in the in anti-submarine warfare in the Navy, and I figure that the government probably wasted about $18 million by having me in the war. Now, really, I was, I went, joined with a lot of patriotism. By the way, this is World War II, not World War I. Right. I want to that's great. But, you know, I had a lot of problems. One, I was very bad at airplane identification. They'd have a test, they'd flash a silhouette of an airplane. Now, when I was there for a full second, I could begin to guess it. But then it got quicker and quicker. And everybody else would say what it was. But as my sons know, I can't even identify a car. But the worst thing was...
But you know, the Navy is still having trouble with that.
That's true. But the worst thing was, I was bad. We would do routines, maneuvers with an American submarine, and we would try to track down the American submarine. I couldn't identify the periscope. Now, I'd be the officer in charge, and I'd be sitting on the deck, and the fellow next to me would be, the boatswain's mate would say, "Sir, periscope sighting bearing 045. I'd say, where? He'd say, 045.
Right.
I'd say, where? And as I'm looking, a big submarine would come out of the water. I never saw the periscope.
You have to have a little more warning than that.
Yeah, I was terrible. I mean, I really was worried that if we ever came against a real submarine...
These were the early tiny submarines, right? These were not the big nuclear-powered deals that we have today in the Navy, right?
No, but they weren't exactly tiny. Our ship was tiny. When we first had our contact with the Jap submarine, we all got very excited. They had what they call the ping system. An echo would go out, ping, ping, and when you had contact with the submarine, it'd go ping, 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 and the closer you got, the closer the echoes would get. Well, we got all excited. In those times, you used what was called ash cans. These were like, really, they looked like garbage cans filled with explosives. Then you get excited, you try to get close to where the submarine is and drop off the ash cans, or else have a little mousetrap attack where these little bombs hit the submarine. We had a contact, so we got all excited. So the captain stopped the engines, and he said, drop off a depth charge marker. Well, I'm the guy giving the instructions to the guy at the stern. Well, he got nervous. Instead of dropping off a depth charge marker, which makes a green slick over the water, he drops off a depth charge, and our ship goes boom. And I thought, really, I thought it was like a movie. I thought, this is it, chaps. This is it. I'm smashed up against the thing, and we almost blew our own ship out of the water. So that's why I think that the government would have saved a lot of money if they kept me out of the Navy.
Now, we eventually won that war, right? Yeah.
In spite of all that.
We have to do a commercial, and we'll be back here with Kirk Douglas. Back you very much. Kirk Douglas is with us. This must be very gratifying. We have here a compilation, in your own words, your life story, and this week it's the #2 listing on the New York Times bestseller list. That's very impressive. Must be very gratifying.
It is. The first book I've written. It's quite a new role for me, and I'm enjoying it.
Now, in here, do you talk about, and I don't want to embarrass you, but do you talk about you and Hollywood movie honeys? Well-known, legendary stars.
A question like that I mean, they told me that this was an intellectual show. They told me that we would discuss the philosophies that I express in the Ragman Son, and you pose a question like you pose a question
yeah, I know.
like that.
Yeah, sort of posed it, sure. Well, but you know.
Let me put it this way. I think if you're going to tell a portrait, if you're going to write about your life and try to be honest, life is love, death, it's also sex, so certainly there are certain elements in my book of sex, but if you want to, you can flip over those pages of sex and go on with the story.
Yeah, but if you do that, it's not going to be #2 long. But again, without, you want to come back to this? You want to think about this and come back to it? Or can you tell us, like dating, just without the other stuff? A famous movie star, or maybe you didn't go out with movie stars.
David, on TV, I never talk about that subject. I've written about it in my book, but on TV I would never talk about that subject.
Okay.
Because there are a lot of children out there.
All right.
Children who should be sleeping.
That's right.
Who are watching this show.
Right. And tomorrow the kids can get up and go spend $20 on the book. And, and you've also done something which may or may not be unique in the world of publishing. You have read. It's an audio book. You have read your book onto audio tape.
Well, you see, I'm not a professional writer. I've worked with wonderful writers, but what I try to do in the Ragman Son, to tell my story, to try to be as honest as I can, is I talked it out in a tape, then transcribed it. Right. So when people who know me read the book, they think they can hear me saying it.
Absolutely, sure.
Because I'm telling a story. Yeah. I'm not trying to describe, beautiful descriptions. I'm telling this, hopefully, the story of my life, and it's an exciting process because when you write a book like that, whether you publish it or you don't publish it, you find out a lot of things about yourself. Yeah. I mean, I was shocked to find out how much anger I have inside of me. Still have.
Well, I know. But now, will these tapes be made available to people who want to buy them to listen to them in their car, or if they have impaired vision or for one reason or another and they can't read
I suppose so. Cassettes are made for those who prefer not to read. They're lying in bed. Maybe it'll be a book to fall asleep by. I don't know.
Yeah, that's what the show is for.
It's a vocal.
We have now part of one of these audio tapes that you've done. It's a passage from your book.
I can't wait to see what you picked out.
No, this is a very interesting bit of your early life.
Intellectual, something
we'll see.
Philosophical.
Kirk Douglas now reading from The Ragman Son.
One day she reached under the desk and clutched my hand close to her thigh. I hoped she couldn't hear my heart beating. It was so loud. And my hand touching her thigh was so sweaty, I tried to draw it away slowly, but she held it more tightly as she went on in her reverie. She asked me to come by and help her with some English papers one evening. I was sitting on the bed, and she kissed me. My lips felt so hot, I thought they would burst into flames. She held me and wanted to do more, but I was too frightened, just a fumbling schoolboy of 14.
You take that out of context.
No,
David,
I know.
And you take a scene that's my first introduction to that.
I know, but this is great. This is the kind of thing all my life I prayed for. It happened to you at 14. At 41, it still hasn't happened to me. Now, this must have been a life-altering experience for you.
Well, it always is. I mean, the first time a young man or a young girl is introduced to the world of sex is something they're never going to forget.
This was your English teacher.
That's right. Oh. She also taught me English.
Yeah, but you would have picked that up somewhere along the way. I mean, I don't mean to cheapen the episode because it did end up being a very important part of your formative years.
It was. It was. Out of context, you seem to give it a certain levity, but really...
No, well, no, sure.
No, really, it was a very important part of my life. And may I say this? It's the first time I've heard this tape.
Yeah.
I
Really?
recorded it, but I never heard it.
Yeah.
Sounded pretty good, didn't it?
It sounded great. Make a hell of a book, I think.
I think so.
It's called The Ragman Son. This is terribly exciting that it's such a big hit for you. Good to see you again,
Thank
Kirk.
you.
Thank you very much for being here. We'll do station identification, then we'll be right back. All right, Paul, here's the show. Patrick Swayze, fine film actor.
From Dirty Dancing.
Yeah, Justin Wilson, who is out here going to cook some sort of a Cajun delight for us.
Collard greens.
Yeah, and oysters.
And oysters.
Collard greens and oysters,
Yeah.
that's right. And Kirk Douglas, who, this is his second book, I believe. He's probably written others, but this is the second one that I know of. This is a novel, by the way.
It is.
The other one was the story of his life. This is a novel.
And this is what, hardcover?
Yeah, it is. Of course, we better take it down to the lab for a complete test, but I think, yes, so far it's the hardcover.
So far.
But now, I don't get this deal about my mom. My mom is somewhere in Washington, the state of Washington, phoning from the lobby of a motel. How did we find her there? She's not staying at the motel. Did we notify the highway patrol?
She must have just dropped in on a trip somewhere. She
Yeah.
must be heading somewhere. Maybe she's going up to
Yeah,
Canada.
we didn't get nearly enough detail about that vacation, did we?
She's way, way far from home.
After a number of legendary motion pictures, our first guest is embarked upon a literary career. His recent autobiography was a bestseller, and his first novel right here, and I believe this is hardback, is called Dance with the Devil. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome back to the program here, Kirk Douglas. Kirk, come on out.
David, I was thinking the last time I was here a couple of years ago, it was kind of exciting getting here because somebody put me in a freight elevator. I ended up with a couple of Russian bears.
That's right, I
in a
remember
cage.
that. This is way downstairs in the building, and you and the bears, yeah.
But this time I had a nice trip, no motion sickness coming over, by the way.
Oh, good for you. Happy motoring.
I love that, by the way. East Germany with Quebec.
Yeah,
I like that.
thank you very much.
But you know, coming over, I did have an idea. Let me try it on you. I was thinking,
Okay.
now that I'm trying to be a writer, I'm really not a writer, but what about this for a book? It's a TV show.
Right.
It's a guy called, let's say we call him Dick Betterman.
Dick Betterman.
Yeah, he's kind of a tall guy, you know, sort of funny looking, but very popular. Now, I think, I think this is interesting. Now, he has a guy in the band, leader of the band, we call him Saul.
Saul, yeah.
Now, Saul is very jealous of Dick Betterman.
Right.
So Saul keeps there and he keeps saying, Betterman, Betterman, I'm a better man than Betterman.
Yeah.
You know,
There you go.
he's very jealous. So then, one night, he gets the idea, he arranges a 250-pound bag of, up in the rafters.
Stage weights or some sandbags, yeah.
And he gets that so it's right over Betterman's head, and he connects it to the B-flat key. Yeah. So the next night, boom, B-flat, pow. And Betterman's brains get splattered all over the floor. Now, the producer says the show must go on, so they cut to Saul. They cut to Saul while they're cleaning up the mess, and Saul gets to be the leader of the show. How do you like it?
I love it. I think that'd be a wonderful bestseller.
Oh, God, that's the best I could do.
It would never sell.
My favorite part of the whole scenario is tall, kind of funny-looking guy. Here's where I'll just start fumfering a little bit. This to me, now, is this your second book that you've published?
Yes, I wrote my autobiography. We talked about that a couple years ago. And this is the first novel that I've written, and it's exciting. Yeah. It's something new.
So now most people in the world will go through their lives without ever having written one book. Now, you're certainly an accomplished actor and a worldwide star, and also now you've published 2 books, one of which is a work of fiction. Now...
the third one might be about that sandbag.
Yeah.
Watch out!
Oh, hey, Hey, he's doing a bit with me.
I thought it was coming down.
But I guess what I'm trying to say is I find this very impressive, very intriguing that you've been able to combine these two things or to excel in two different areas.
Well, David, I find it astounding, but you know, it's not that different. No, really, you see, writing a novel is really an extension of being an actor. An actor loves to play all the parts he can play. So when you write a novel, you're playing old ladies, young children. As a matter of fact, you control and you play all the parts, so that's something exciting.
Now, when you're writing a work of fiction, what is the actual process? Do you get up every morning, sit down in front of a typewriter, you type 500-600 words a day?
I always say I scribble. I really get ideas, I put them down on a piece of yellow paper. That's the way when I was doing Dance with the Devil, I did that. Then, after a week or so, I collect all that. I have someone put it through a word processor. Then I look at it and start writing it.
Now, do you draw on? Of course, how could you not draw on your life for this novel, although it is fiction? But there must be, you know, things that would be familiar to those who knew you well.
Well, of course, I think that when you're writing a novel, in some sense, you can say more honest things in a novel than you can in an autobiography, because behind other characters, you can say some things that you feel very deeply that you might not want to say as yourself.
Yeah, exactly. Now, I know, for instance, there are parts of this book that are, you know, kind of hot, kind of, you know, kind of wild, some exciting sexual images and so forth. Now, did you make all of those up, or? Gee, that's a great look. But, you know, did they come from your life, or is this just stuff that you thought, oh, this might be fun?
David, sex is based on imagination, and I have a vivid imagination.
Yeah. But you know what I'm getting at. I mean, there are parts in there where it's, I mean, well, we'll let it go at that. But you know what I'm saying? Did you have in your past a particularly exciting, you know, that found its way into the book, or is that, again, just the work of a novel?
Do you understand what he's trying to say?
No. I'll take one more pass at this, and then we'll let it go. There's some scenes in there where there's groups of people engaging in sexual activity. Now, are those made up, or is that something that, you know, may have happened?
David, how can you doubt it? I wrote an autobiography that's based on facts. See, there's a big difference between make-believe and reality. Yeah. A novel is make-believe, you see? So all of that is a figment of my imagination.
I knew it. It's true, isn't it? Let's do a commercial. We'll be right back with Kirk. Kirk Douglas is here. You know, you're working on another novel, it says in here. Well, good for you. And now, the first one, your life story.
That was true.
Yeah. Now, that was a huge bestseller, wasn't it?
Yes.
Same publishing company?
No, Random House is publishing.
Now, when you sell the rights to this book, the novel, to another publishing company, do they have the same expectations for this book as they had for what the other company did?
Well, that's hopefully, I guess that they think it's going to do very well, and I hope they're right.
Does that make you nervous, thinking, oh, I hope it sells as well as the first one?
Well, I tell you, what makes you nervous is never writing the book. It's getting a reaction. For example, someone called me from the New York Times and said, well, Kirk, weren't you a little nervous about dealing, a small part of the book deals with the Holocaust? That's a very serious subject. I said, that didn't make me nervous. What made me nervous is the New York Times calling me. That made me nervous, wondering, did they like the book or didn't they like the book? Because while you're writing a book, when I'm writing Dance with the Devil, I'm engaged in the process of writing it. Then when it's finished, you're nervous about, gee, will David Letterman like it? Will he invite me on his show? You know,
really? You were nervous about that? Oh, that's cute.
That's why I'm happy to be here.
No, I know what you mean, because the writing process, fiction or nonfiction, is very personal. It's all coming from within you. Whereas if you're playing a character in a film, you're under the direction of the director, and you're generally at the mercy of the script and so forth.
Well, that to me is what's exciting about writing a novel, because making a movie is a collaborative effort. As you say, there's so many people involved.
That's right.
But writing a book is a very personal thing. Sure. You're writing things that you feel, things that you imagine, but it's one-on-one. I write the book, and then you read it, and it's like I'm speaking directly to you.
Exactly.
So that's a very new experience for me, and I like it.
Yeah. Let me ask you about other things in your life. At one point, I guess you've been invited to the White House through almost every administration that you've been an adult for. Is that right?
Since Abraham Lincoln.
And
I've been there quite often, and it's always
doesn't make any difference. Republicans, Democrats, you get invited.
It's always excitement. You always get a little sweaty palms. It's the White House.
Yeah, of course it is. Now,
Yeah.
and have you been called upon to perform?
Well, not officially, but one night we were stuck. It was winter, and it was a big snowstorm, and we were stuck there, and Bobby Kennedy said, well, look, come over to my house for dinner. And after dinner, he said, let's go over and visit my brother, like it was next door. Of course, his brother was at the White House. Right. So we all went over to the White House that evening, and it was very pleasant, because everyone's sitting around the floor talking and entertaining, and it was fun.
So you and Bobby just show up virtually unannounced at the White House?
Well, as far as I know, I don't know if he announced it. With a few other people who were there.
So just like regular folks then?
Yeah, it was fun. And we all kind of took turns doing something. Everybody had to do something.
Yeah. And what did the president do?
The president and Bobby sang a duet.
Oh, they actually did music then? Yeah, what was the song?
I don't remember. Some camp song that they did, and I sang some kind of an old, I don't know what, some old minstrel
So then
song.
you also sang?
Sure.
Yeah, what was the song you sang?
I sang, I'm Red Hot Henry Brown.
I'm Red Hot Henry Brown. And did this go over? Were they pleased by this, or?
I'm Red Hot Henry Brown. I'm the hottest man in town. That red hot mama that you heard about, she took a look at me and her fire went out. Now I'm a man that's hard to find, 'cause I'm a red hot.
This was going on at the White House, ladies and gentlemen. We had the Russians breathing down our necks, and he's singing in the Oval Office. Are you having fun are you on a book tour officially, or just going to...
Yes, no, I'm on a book tour. It's exhausting. I signed about 500 books around noon.
Now, that's a sight that I have trouble imagining. You in a bookstore, and you just sign autographs for people, they line up?
That's right.
And are people pretty nice when you talk to them like that?
Yes, they are.
Yeah.
You know, it's flattering, because, you know, you become provincial. Even people in New York or in Hollywood. And that is, you know, you're sort of divorced from people. This way, you have a one-on-one. People comes up for sign a book. You have a chance to look at them. You see the expression. Exactly.
Yeah, absolutely.
Like you and I have. You and I have good connection, don't we?
I hope so. Sure. But those are the people who are buying your book, and they've spent money on your movie tickets, and there they are, right there. So
they have a chance to see some of those people.
You know, I don't know how old you are. I have a rough idea, but I'm telling you, I'm 43. I wish I looked as good as you look now at 43.
Well, 43. I got two sons older than that.
Yeah, I know. Gee, I'm happy you came back here. It's great to see you. It's a nice treat. Have a good summer.
Thank you.
I hope it's a great hit for us. Kirk Douglas, ladies and gentlemen. Okay, our next guest has been here before a couple of times. We're always very happy when he decides he can come back and see us again. Let's see. Oh, he is a legend in Hollywood, of course, and he has starred in over 70 motion pictures. That's right. Including Spartacus and also Lust for Life. He is also a best-selling author. Here's a copy of his newest book right here entitled The Gift. Ladies and gentlemen, here's Kirk Douglas. I don't care. All right. The first guest who actually needed an usher. Kirk, how are you?
Good, but
Man,
it's 80 movies. It's not 70.
I'm sorry, I stand corrected.
Where were you when I was making those 10 movies?
I missed 10. I'll confess to that. Yeah. Do you remember? Is it possible to remember every movie or can you remember an experience from each of those movies?
Thank God, no.
Yeah.
There's several movies you want to forget, and that's the curse of television. You know, you've done a movie, you say, boy, I'm glad that's over, and 10 years, 20 years later, there it is.
Yeah.
In your home on TV. No. No, there's lots of them you want to forget.
See, we have that problem here every night. Something happens here in the studio and you think, oh my God, thank goodness that's gone and I can forget about it. And then you realize, oh, later tonight, all of America gets to see it.
You know, I was going to bring you a gift. I thought it was appropriate.
Very nice of you.
So I was in California before I left, and I'm packing this gift. And my wife says, what's that?
Mm-hmm.
And I can't quite get it in the suitcase. It's a banderia that the bullfighters use, and in my novel, the hero is a Portuguese bullfighter.
It's a sword, is that what it is?
Well, it's more of a spear. So my wife says, what's that, something from Spartacus? I said, no. I said, this is something from the book. I said, I thought it'd be a gag. I'd give it to
me?
David Letterman on the show. She says, well, but why don't you give him a bigger spear from Spartacus? I said, honey, I'm not talking about Spartacus. This is from a book I've written. She said, well, go ahead, make a fool of yourself. I think it's silly, so you never got the gift.
But yeah, seriously, why didn't I get something from Spartacus?
You know why, David? You were too young then. You weren't even allowed to see movies.
No, that's not true. I saw Spartacus in the theater when I was a kid. Absolutely. Oh, yeah. It was, well, like I'm telling you, it was an epic. It was an odyssey. Oh, Kirk, you should have seen the movie. It was in color. My God, what a movie.
No, but it is wonderful now when you've made a movie and 30 years later, a lot of young people who've never seen the movie see it, and the fact that they like it. You know, you think, well, they might think it's old-fashioned. The fact they enjoy it, that's a lot of gratification. That's wonderful.
You know what I have noticed, and this is a silly, long story. A couple of years ago, I got a VCR. So now I've been renting all of these old movies, and I'm at a point now where I can hardly watch a brand new movie because I'm so in love with the old films. And you wonder, I'm beginning to sound like my parents when they said, oh, they're not making movies like they used to. But you wonder, maybe there's something to that, or am I just getting old?
Well, there are a lot of wonderful movies. Listen, Casablanca, that's a movie I could see all the time.
Yeah.
You know, and that was made before it ever came out here. And I think people say that, David, they always say the good old days. I think things change. You go through, of course, right now I think we're going through a period of maybe too much emphasis on violence instead of, you know, a story. But I think it'll change.
What about too much emphasis on sex?
There can never be too much emphasis on sex.
Well, your son is doing what he can to carry on that tradition, isn't he? You betcha.
You gotta admit, it says something about genes.
Now, what is your reaction when you go to the movie and you see Michael and he's naked, she's naked, everybody's naked? I mean, of course, I'm guessing you've seen him naked before.
Well, as a matter of fact, I've shown my butt in a movie years ago. I mean, so what? I mean, really, I never think of that. For example, in Basic Instincts, I told Michael, I think that's one of the best pieces. I really did a brilliant acting job. A lot of times people get confused by the explicit sexuality. They forget it's a very, very well-acted movie. I mean, to me, it's, you know, you always have to know the difference, David, between make-believe and reality. As long as you don't confuse the two, you know, what's the difference? You got to know who you are.
Yeah. How many movies... Well, I can't get into this.
Go ahead. Take a crack at it.
How many movies did you show your butt in?
And I had to encourage him to go ahead.
Yeah, that's right. I was feeling confident. I thought, oh, well, Kirk wants me to go ahead. And would you show it to us tonight? Now, this has taken an ugly turn, hasn't it? I tell you what, let's do. We'll talk this over. We'll do a commercial. We'll be right back here with Kirk Douglas. Kirk Douglas is here, ladies and gentlemen. Helen Hunt. Have you seen Helen Hunt's work? She was in the Billy Crystal film.
Many things.
Yep, she's very good. And David Cohn, you're a baseball fan?
And how? I just spoke to him backstage.
Pretty exciting for the guy, isn't it?
I said, where's your ring? He said he doesn't get it until next season.
Yep. And Peter Frampton is right over there as well. Okay. Let's see, what should we talk about? We were looking at some old videotape. It's a kinescope, videotape made of a kinescope, I believe, in 1956. You were hosting...
56?
1956.
Just a kid.
Yeah,
Just a kid.
you were. 1956, you were hosting or guest hosting the Ed Sullivan Show.
Oh, that's a few years back.
How did that come about?
You know, I don't remember. I mean, well, I hosted the Johnny Carson show once. I'll tell you one thing I learned. You know, when you're young and foolish, you try anything. My respect for you guys has grown enormously. It ain't easy to be where you are and to really take on a whole show and keep it going. I think it's a tremendous job. Really, I congratulate you.
Thank you, but...
Look modest.
It's easy if you do the kind of job I do, which is, I do it sloppy. Yeah. But, well, do you mind if we show you on the Ed Sullivan Show?
I'd like to see it.
As
I can't remember.
I believe Ed Sullivan had been injured or was ill or something.
I think so.
All right, well, let's take a look. Here we go, 1956, one Sunday night, Kirk Douglas hosting the Ed Sullivan Show.
Mermaid Minnie, met her down in Madagascar. She would kiss me anytime that I would ask her. Then she gave me the scare of my young life. Throw me down and pick me up. She was the captain's wife. The whale of a tailor, tell you that. A whale of a tail or two. But perfect fish and the girls I love. Nights like this with the moon above. Whale of a tail and it's all true. I swear by my
And you still know the words.
You know...
I'm telling you something. You look in that tape, you look great now, and you look great then. I mean, it's not that much different.
That's why I like to be on your show, David. You say the right thing. But I tell you something, when I did that song, Got a Wheel of a Tale, I was very excited because Walt Disney, he said, Kirk, we're going to make a record of it. I said, a record of it? So we made a record of Got a Wheel of a Tale and another song, Under some moon or something, made a record of it. And the record went out. And I said to Sinatra one night, I said, listen, you know, I've got a record out. I said, look, Frank, I think what we should do is exchange records. I'll give you all the records I make, and you give me all the records you make. Of course, that was the only record I made, so I made a good deal with him. Yeah.
Did it sell? Was that a popular record for you?
I probably got about $240 in royalties.
Yeah, that's all it takes. Now, this book is your third book, your second novel. Your autobiography was a huge bestseller, wasn't it?
That's right,
Yeah.
yes.
And this is, it picks up where the first novel left off. It's more of
No,
the
it's just the story. When I did the first novel, A Dance with the Devil, people often said to me, what do you think happened to Patricia, who was a young girl in that? So I thought about it, and I wrote The Gift, and that's what happens to Patricia.
How do you write? It's very difficult work, isn't it?
Well, of course, you know, I feel like a young kid starting in a whole new career, and I'm very excited about it, because I don't have any set pattern. I just, I scribble. I think the scenes come to me like a movie in my mind, and then I act out all the parts, men, women, you know, children, and then I'm acting them out, and when I come to someone, I say, hey, Kirk, you were terrific, so I write it down.
Are you prolific?
Well, I don't know that I'm prolific. I enjoy writing. I'm already in the middle of a next book. But each book, you know, brings you into such, you know, contact with such wonderful things. Like in The Gift, I went to Portugal. And a lot of it takes place with Portuguese bullfighting where they don't kill the bull. By the way, you know, when they don't kill the bull, the exciting thing is the horsemanship of it. Now, you know what happens? At the end of the fight, the bull is alone in the ring. Now, how do you think they get the bull out?
They have somebody whistle at him?
You know what they do? They put in about 10 cows. They lumber in.
Oh, the cows, the old cow trick.
Exactly. They surround the bull and
Say
the
no
bull goes
more,
off
it's the
with
old
them.
cow trick. Yeah, betcha.
I couldn't believe it. And a woman shall lead them, and off they go.
Let's see, what else was I gonna... Oh, you know what, let's do? Hang around right after the show, and we'll go down to Hurley's, the bar down on the corner. You and I will have a couple of drinks, okay?
Why not?
And then we'll fight guys.
Okay.
What do you think? Yeah! Yeah! The book is The Gift. It's Kirk Douglas. Always a pleasure, sir. Thank you very much for being here. Kirk Douglas.